Well, good morning. It is Thursday. Hello, you all, you beautiful people. Miss Amy, Miss Williams, Miss Garrick, Miss Prestia, Miss Zuniga. Oh, that's Jeff. Sandy Bates, Miss Donna White. Is that it? Did I have commented? If you're watching, please comment. Let me know. Good morning, Miss Dolores. Love you. Comment. Let me know. Go ahead and share it. Let me know if you watched last night. Last night was a great word. Great word. Great word last night. So, we have been talking about Christians and finances. Good morning, Hector. Good to see you. We're going to continue that. And this one I think will be good, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. Hello, Mallory. Good to see you, even though I just left you. Good morning, Tony. We're going to talk about... Hey, Brother Steve, good to see you. Breaking company with stagnant people. And I can just talk about this. We don't even have to get super spiritual. This one's pretty easy. Sheila, good morning, ma'am. Good to see you on. Kathy, good morning. Breaking company with stagnant people. If you have any questions about what we've talked about already, just kind of setting the foundation for Christians and finances, you can ask any questions about finances, about budgeting, about any of the stuff we've talked about. We talked about breaking materialism, stop following. Good morning, April. Stop following the celebrities and all of that and wishing you had all of that. Be content and happy where the Lord has you in the season that he has you in. That's the only way he can take you and expand you to another season. So let's start in Proverbs 13, verse 20. Proverbs 13, verse 20. Make sure you shared this so that people don't hop on it at the end and tell me they wish they would have gone back and started over. But good morning, Aunt Sherry. Good to see you. Proverbs 30, verse 20. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. Who you keep company with, I was actually having this conversation with my son, who's 19, about to turn 20, last night. Where did you find the Celsius? I was told of a secret stash, which now I can't even drink Celsius anymore. Like, I'm drinking this one, like, cringing the whole time, because they've just gotten extremely exposed for lying about their ingredients. They're as filthy as everyone else. Freaking liars. Anyways. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. Who you keep company with, the people you surround yourself with, determine the outcome of your life. And multiple people at different stages, I think we could all throw up an emoji hand to this, have been at a place in life where you either have to choose to be lonely for a season or you choose to be around bad company. I can say I had to do that multiple times in my life, to where I either had to keep hanging around with my friends and keep staying stagnant, keep staying in a bad place in life, or I had to cut them off and just be by myself for a season. And that's what we had to figure out. And being in a church like this makes it much easier. You have like-minded people that are on fire for the Lord, that you can trust, that are going to help you through stuff, that aren't gossiping behind your back. But there are, see, and this is what I was telling, kids in their relationships, and this isn't just kids, this is adults too. So many people would rather be around someone, whether that's giving them attention, whether it's positive or negative, than rather just be around the right people. I can tell you 100%. And this is just my testimony. This is how it is. This is not me trying to do anything. Anyways, when I was in the world and surrounded by foolish people, my phone would blow up all the time. When are we partying? Where are we going? Yada, yada, yada. When I made a decision to change my life and seek the Lord, all of those people stopped calling, which was good because I prayed, hey, I need all of these people out of my life. But the Bible talks about many, in a couple different verses, talks about friends, and it puts it in quotations. And in one translation says fake friends. So there are many people that, when you're living foolishly, will be around you for what you bring or your personality or what they can benefit from. But whenever you decide to pursue the things of God and you decide to make wise choices for your life, that your circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And you just have to go through that season of crucifying your flesh when it comes to needing all of this these bad friendships, the bad attention, the bad feedback, the negative attention. And you have to push through it and lock yourself, you and the Lord, in like two good friends, and that's it. I remember whenever I made this transition in my life, you can ask my mom, she's on. I would literally go to work. I would come home from work, pop headphones in, listen to teachings. I played my one video game that I played, and that's FIFA. And I would read the Word, I would eat, and go to sleep. And that was it. That was all I did. If you wanted to be friends with me, you had to come into my environment. I'm not going to your environment. I had one friend, that would come over to my mom's house and sit with me, play FIFA with me for a little bit. One. You have to go through those seasons of pruning and cutting those friends out of your life that are pulling you down. And this is even Christian friends, hello? Like there are Christian, like I'm not going to mention names because the last time I kind of said something about this artist, someone got upset. But I was wanting to find some new worship music because I've been listening every morning to the same album for probably close to a year now, if not longer. Every morning. And I was like, man, as much as I really like this album, I think it's time for some new worship. And so I went to this certain artist that so many people love and absolutely think their songs are anointed and want them on every stage. And I go through, and every fifth song they're partnering with a secular artist. And I'm just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I'm not saying, what album is it that I listen to every morning? It is William McDowell's Sounds of Revival. William McDowell, Sounds of Revival. So this will push me right back to the album. That's why I've listened to this one album for so long, because it's anointed, it's pure, and it's great. And those are the kind of things you have to surround yourself with. The issue is we get comfortable with where we are. We get comfortable and we let down our guard a little bit. We let down our boundaries, if you will, and we start letting things creep in. And we have to constantly surround ourselves with wise people. That's why I love people like Pastor Larry, like Evangelist Harvey. Love being around them. People that I can learn from. People that I can go to for wisdom on things. Surround yourself with wise people. Don't get advice from people that are, how do I say this without sounding bad? That don't have more wisdom than you. Oh, we'll just say it that way. Don't go to people, don't go get marriage advice from people that aren't saved. Good morning, Sylvia. Don't go get life advice from people that aren't Holy Ghost filled. It just doesn't make sense. If you profess to be a Spirit-led Christian, would you get advice from anyone in any capacity of life that isn't Spirit-filled? It just doesn't make sense. It makes zero sense. That's like me getting financial advice from a donkey. It makes no sense. If we believe we can be led by the Spirit and that we can hear the voice of God directly, and that it's kind of like this, and those of you that are applying to the Bible school and want to come to the Bible school, and hopefully some of you are on that haven't commented, and I know some of you are on already, but it's kind of like this question. Are we allowed to date in Bible school? Great question, because it has a great answer, and it'll kind of make you shut up. But it gives you an answer. Do you believe God has called you to this Bible school and to this church? Well, yes, that's why I'm applying. Okay, so what that means then is that you believe God has placed you under the leadership of this Bible school and this church. Well, yeah, Pastor Sean, yeah, that makes sense. So what that means is that you believe God has placed you to be discipled by the leadership of this Bible school and this church. Well, yeah, that would make sense. Okay, what is discipleship? Discipleship is accountability. Discipleship is an openness. Discipleship is letting people see you at your best and your worst. Discipleship is allowing people around you so they can learn from you. Discipleship is being completely honest with everything. So back to the dating thing, because this goes back to who you're around. If you're completely open and honest with leadership and your friends, again, and this is a conversation that I've had with both my kids, well, both my older kids. I haven't had this conversation with Eden yet. But if you are in a relationship that you have to hide and be secretive about, it's never going to turn out good. If you're in a relationship, it should be someone that wants to be around your family, wants to be around your friends, wants to be around your mentors and the people you look up to. If it's that kind of a person, then you probably have a good person. Not all the time, but a lot more likely than the person that's always hiding and moving in the shadows. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. 2 Corinthians 6:14. Well, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness? Do not be unequally yoked. I know everyone likes to put this as marriage. You could put this as friends. You could put this as business partners. You could put this in every area of life. Do not be unequally yoked. And people like to say that it's just believers and unbelievers that it is talking about. Don't be unequally yoked. So it's kind of like this. What animals would they yoke? What animals can you yoke for farm work? You can yoke cattle, you can yoke oxen, you can yoke mules, you can yoke donkeys. So say it's like Christians, say you have 2 oxen. Have you ever seen one animal of the exact same species? One's bigger and stronger, and one's not as big and strong, right? Am I the only one that's ever seen? Have you ever seen an American cow versus an African cow? Hello? There's a big difference. We fatten our cows up with corn and steroids. They don't. They eat just grass. There's a big difference. It's the same. You can be unequally yoked with another believer. Trying to go into a relationship that is not led by the Lord, and the Lord has not spoken to you directly on, and one believer is well more advanced than another, can cause issues. One believer that is called to ministry and the other is not can cause issues. There are things still inside of believers that can cause issues. You can still be unequally yoked to another believer. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Deuteronomy 22:10. Man, I just gave a good example without even noticing it because it rolls right into this. You shall not plow with an ox, a clean animal, and a donkey, an unclean together. So there you go. Amos 3:3. Can 2 people walk together without agreeing on the direction? Just think about that. If 2 people are holding hands, but they don't talk about where they're going, and they get to an intersection and try to go different ways, how foolish are they going to look? But we do this in relationships, we do this in friendships, we do this in business partnerships all the time. This is one thing I've told many people, married people, people that think they want to get married, people that think they want to date each other. What's your vision for your life? What's their vision? Oh, I don't know. We haven't talked about that. Well, then y'all are being foolish. Y'all are being foolish. As an on-fire Christian, you should know the vision for your life, number one. Number two, you should be asking anyone that you are considering to marry the same things. If they don't line up, guess what? That is a form of being unequally yoked. If they don't line up in some capacity, then that is a form of being unequally yoked. Matthew 10:14. Hopefully I'm stepping on some toes today. I see a lot of people on that are not commenting. So either you don't like what I'm saying and you're hiding, or you just don't like people to know you're on. Matthew 10:14. And whoever will not receive you, nor hear your words when you depart from that house or city, shake off the dust from your feet. And this is kind of a thing, like, if you're giving good advice, if you're giving advice based on this, and people don't want to hear you, you don't keep giving them advice. Remember, Pastor Ryan says that from the pulpit all the time and says it in meetings even more. Advice not requested is advice not received. People that don't come and ask you for advice and actually listen to it aren't actually receiving it and aren't going to walk out the advice anyway. So don't waste your time giving it to them again and again and again. And that, on the flip side of that, check yourself. Do I actually want the advice of the people I'm going to? Or am I just making it look like I want the advice? Number one, if that's you, you need to get your heart right. Because if you're going to the right people, you should line up with their advice. If you're going to people that actually love you and actually care about you and want what's best for you and can hear from God, then you would be foolish to ignore their advice. Genesis 12, 1 through 3. Thank you for the hug emojis. I appreciate it. It makes me feel warm. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. All the families of the earth shall be blessed. When you line up with the word of God, you will be blessed. And it doesn't matter what people say about you. It doesn't matter what people say about you. But right here you see, if you line up with the word of God, you shall be a great blessing. And those who bless you, those who are on your side, those who are with you, will be blessed. Those who are not will be accursed. You don't even have to worry about them. The word says the vengeance is the Lord's. Hebrews 6:12 out of the Amplified says this. And we're going to keep it real short today because I don't want to go into too much stuff. Well, we'll see. Hebrews 6:12. In order that you may not grow disinterested and become spiritual sluggards, but imitators, behaving as do those who through faith by their leaning of the entire personality on God in Christ, in absolute trust and confidence in his power, wisdom, and goodness, and by practice of patient endurance and waiting, are now inheriting the promises. This it goes back to exactly what I said at the very beginning. If you can endure patiently through those seasons of being lonely or not being able to do what you see everyone else doing, because if you have to realize God has set you apart. He has special giftings and talents and callings on the inside of each and every one of you. He has set you apart. There are seasons where you will literally have to set yourself apart from the crowd. There are seasons that you will have to be lonely, if you will. And you, by doing so, you set yourself up by seeing the promises of God come to pass in your life. But right here, I find it very interesting that you may not grow disinterested. Because there's times where it may feel like a lonely season or a struggling, growing season. And what I mean by that, when you're being so stretched. Have you ever been so stretched spiritually you didn't know if you could last any longer? You feel like you remember those old torture tables that you see in history books where they would crank them and stretch them and the person's like screaming. Sometimes you feel like that spiritually. But the Lord is taking you from level to level to level. You can't be... Have you ever... I think I'm weird this way because no one else that I have ever met likes to do this. And everyone thinks I'm nuts for doing this. But if I go to a sporting event, even if it's a high school event, I like to get there early and watch the athletes warm up. I just do. As someone that loved competing and loved everything about sports, everything, the training when no one saw you to performing to whatever, I loved every aspect of it. I like watching athletes warm up, especially professional athletes. I watch every little intricacy. Because if they're not warming up that way, if they're not doing the stretches when no one's watching, if they're not doing the meal plans when no one's watching, if they're not training additionally on their own, if they're not getting enough sleep, they cannot perform the way they're getting paid to perform. And it's the same for us. If we aren't doing the little things, if we're not going through the seasons that we have to mend things and trim things in our life, then we can never get to God fulfilling the promises in our life. Proverbs 27:17. Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens and influences another through discussion. This is why D groups and life groups are so important. Because you make relationships, you have conversations that sharpen you, that cause you to grow, that cause you to go from one level to the next level. Without those discussions, that can never happen. It says right here, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens and influences another through discussion. Another thing that tells me is every discussion I have is influencing me in one way or another, whether positively or negatively, whether for growth or for decrease. Every discussion you have is influencing you, no matter what it is. Again, if you have any questions, just pop them up in there. And we are going to read a couple more things. Numbers, we're going to read all of Numbers chapter 13. And if you have anything you want me to discuss, throw it in there. I know people have questions on finance because people always ask about money, finances, how do I do this? We're talking about stagnant people. People always have questions about relationships. If you don't want your name out there and you want to ask your question, you can text Miss Amy or Miss Kay, and they can put it in the comments anonymously. So you can do that while we're reading this. Numbers chapter 13. The Lord now said to Moses, send out men to explore the land of Canaan, the land I am giving to the Israelites. So here you have to notice, there are things the Lord tells us in his word that will happen, that we have access to. Send one leader from each of the 12 ancestral tribes. So Moses did as the Lord commanded him. He sent out 12 men, all tribal leaders of Israel, from their camp in the wilderness of Paran. These were the tribes and the names of their leaders. And I skipped this, I think. These are the names of the men Moses sent out to explore the land. Yeah, I didn't want to read all that. Moses called Hoshea, son of Nun, by the name Joshua. Moses gave the men these instructions as he sent them out to explore the land. Go north through the Negev Valley into the hill country. See what the land is like, and find out whether the people living there are weak or strong, few or many. See what kind of land they live in. Is it good or bad? Do their towns have walls, or are they unprotected like open camps? Is the soil fertile or poor? Are there many trees? Do your best to bring back samples of the crops you see. It happened to be the season for harvesting the first ripe grapes. So they went up and explored the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob, near Lebo-Hamath. Going north, they passed through the Negev and arrived at Hebron, where Ahimnan, Shihai, and Talmai, all descendants of Anak, lived. The ancient town of Hebron was founded 7 years before the Egyptian city of Zoan. When they came to the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes so large that it took 2 of them to carry it on a pole between them. They also brought back samples of pomegranates and figs. The place was called the Valley of Eshcol, which means cluster, because of the cluster of grapes the Israelite men cut there. After exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses. Aaron and the whole community of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported to the whole community what they had seen and showed them the fruit they had taken from the land. This was their report to Moses. We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here is the kind of fruit it produces. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. The Amalekites live in the Negev, and the Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country. The Canaanites live along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan Valley. But Caleb tried to quiet the people. This kind of reminds me of, not that anyone has said anything, but in churches that are doing things like what we're doing, to where we're going out and starting to bus people in, bringing a different mix into the congregation. You have people say, even though you can see the fruit in front of your eyes, oh, we've got new people, oh, there's salvation, oh, they're getting plugged in, oh, they're getting baptized. You hear them say, oh, we got to watch those people. Do we really need to help those people? What are we going to do once they get saved? How are we going to disciple? Like, they're always worried about things other than the fruit. If you focus and do what the Lord's told you to do, He causes the fruit to grow. And then He gives you the steps as you go. Let's go and take the land. But Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. Let's go at once to take the land, he said. We can certainly conquer it. But the other men who had explored the land with them disagreed. We can't go up against them. Isn't this crazy? They went to the same land. They heard from the same God that said, I am going to give you this land. But yet 10 of them had a negative outlook, and only 2 of them had the outlook that the Lord had already given them. The Lord already told you, I'm giving you this land. It's flowing with milk and honey. It's a good land. But go see it for yourselves. We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are. So they spread this bad report about the land among the Israelites. The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers. And that's what they thought too. Some people will give you a negative report even though you're seeing fruit. You have to stay focused on what the Lord told you to do. Let's jump down to chapter 14. And again, if you have any questions, throw them in. Then the whole community began weeping out loud, and they cried all night. Their voices rose in a great chorus of protest against Moses and Aaron. If we had only died in Egypt, or even here in the wilderness. This always gets me. This always makes me laugh. If we had only died in the land of sin, because Egypt is a type and shadow of the world and sin. If we had only died where we were bound up and slaves and got beat. Are you keeping company with Christians that want to go back to their slavery? How many of us know Christians that even though they're set free, even though they're in a church that preaches the word, they're continually talking about the issues they have. They're continually staying in a place of complaining and murmuring and gossiping. Because here it says they complained. Why is the Lord taking us to this country to only have us die in battle? Our wives and our little ones will be carried off as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to return to Egypt? Then they plotted amongst themselves, let's choose a new leader and go back to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground before the whole congregation, the whole community of Israel. Two of the men who had explored the land, Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, tore their clothing. They said to all the people of Israel, "The land we traveled through and explored is a wonderful land. And if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into that land and give it to us. It is a rich land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord, and don't be afraid of the people of the land. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them." But the whole community began to talk about stoning Joshua and Caleb. This is what happens. When you stand on the word of the Lord, people turn their back on you. You have to have it made up in your mind. That's what there's a verse that says they stand firm in their faith. That's one of the declarations I declare over myself. I will stand firm in my faith. Then the glorious presence of the Lord appeared to all the Israelites at the tabernacle. And the Lord said to Moses, "How long will these people treat me with contempt? Will they never believe me, even after all the miraculous signs I have done among them?" You got to remember, he made quail to rain down in their camp. He caused a rock to split open twice so they could have water. He caused the two different bodies of water to stand still and stand on edge so they could walk through. He caused manna to rain down from heaven. They were there for 40 years and not even one of their shoes wore out. Not one was sick. Not one was weak. Not one was tired. But they still didn't believe the word of the Lord. "Even after all the miraculous signs I have done among them, I will disown them and destroy them with a plague. Then I will make you into a nation greater and mightier than they are." But Moses objected. "What will the Egyptians think when they hear about it?" he asked the Lord. "They know full well the power you displayed in rescuing your people from Egypt. Now if you destroy them, the Egyptians will send a report to the inhabitants of this land, who have already heard that you live among your people. They know, Lord, that you have appeared to your people face to face, and that your pillar of cloud hovers over them. They know you go before them in the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. Now if you slaughter all these people with a single blow, the nations that have heard of your fame will say, 'The Lord was not able to bring them into the land he swore to give them, so he killed them in the wilderness.' Please, Lord, prove that your power is as great as you have claimed. For you said, 'The Lord is slow to anger and filled with unfailing love, forgiving every kind of sin and rebellion. But he does not excuse the guilty. He lays the sins of the parents upon their children. The entire family is affected, even children in the third and fourth generations, in keeping with your magnificent, unfailing love. Please pardon the sins of this people, just as you have forgiven them ever since they left Egypt.' Then the Lord said, 'I will pardon them as you have requested. But as surely as I live, and surely as the earth is filled with the Lord's glory, not one of these people will enter that land.'" See, this right here shows you your attitude, your confession can keep you out of the promises of God. The people you surround yourself with can keep you out of the promises of God. "They have all seen my glorious presence and miraculous signs I performed both in Egypt and the wilderness. But again and again they have tested me by refusing to listen to my voice. They will never, even with contempt, ever see it. But my servant Caleb has a different attitude than the others." My servant Caleb has a different attitude than the others. "He has remained loyal to me, so I will bring him into the land he has explored. His descendants will possess their full share of the land." Now turn around and don't go on toward the land where the Amalekites and Canaanites live. Tomorrow you must set out for the wilderness in the direction of the Red Sea. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "How long must I put up with this wicked community and its complaints about me? Yes, I have heard the complaints the Israelites are making against me. Now tell them this. As surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very things I heard you say. You will all drop dead in the wilderness because you complained against me. Every one of you who is 20 years old or older and was included in the registration will die. You will not enter and occupy the land I swore to give you. The only exceptions will be Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. You said your children would be carried off as plunder. Well, I will bring them safely into the land, and they will enjoy what you have despised. But as for you, you will drop dead in this wilderness, and your children will be like shepherds wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. In this way, they will pay for your faithlessness until the last of you dies dead in the wilderness. Because your men explored the land for 40 days, you must wander in the wilderness for 40 years, a year for each day, suffering the consequences of your sins. Then you will discover what it is like to have me for an enemy. I, the Lord, have spoken. I will certainly do these things to every member of the community who has conspired against me. They will be destroyed here in the wilderness, and here they will die. The 10 men Moses had sent to explore the land, the ones who incited rebellion against the Lord with their bad report. Of the 12 men, jumping down to verse 38, of the 12 men who had explored the land, only Joshua and Caleb remained alive. When Moses reported the Lord's word to the Israelites, the people were filled with grief. Then they got up early the next morning and went to the top of the range of hills and said, "Let's go," they said. "We realize that we have sinned, but now we are ready to enter the land the Lord has promised us." It's amazing when the Lord calls people out, all of a sudden they want to change. But Moses said, "Why are you now disobeying the Lord's orders to return to the wilderness? It won't work. Do not go into the land now. You will only be crushed by your enemies because the Lord is not with you." When your attitude goes against the word of the Lord, you remove God's hand of protection off you. That's why he says he is after our hearts. After our hearts. The Lord will abandon you because you have abandoned the Lord. Because you have abandoned the Lord. But the people defiantly pushed. They still went on. Defiantly pushed ahead toward the hill country, even though neither Moses nor the ark of the Lord's covenant left the camp. Then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who lived in those hills came down and attacked them and chased them back as far as Hormah. Can you imagine? Moses and Aaron, the priest with the ark, Caleb, Joshua are sitting there going, "What are y'all doing? What? The Lord just told you not to do that, and you're still going to do it." But that some of us have friends like that we've got to make the decision today to cut them off. But hey, I love you. And you don't even have to say anything. Like, people ask me this all the time. Well, how do I cut it off? You just are very short in text. You say you're busy. You say you can't hang out. It's very easy. You don't have to lie, but you make it to where you're not being around them. You can still love them. You can still care about them. But you don't have to compromise what God has for your life because they're not willing to step up and see what he has. If they're not willing to walk into his promises, then you have to leave them behind. This is exactly what God is talking about in Numbers 13 and 14. There are those that you will have to leave behind to be able to walk into the promises of God that he has for you. Proverbs 18:21. This kind of goes along with everything we're saying and who your friends are and who you hang around and the mentors that you that would probably be the modern word for disciplers, if that's a word. Those people that you submit to as your mentors are those people that you've submitted to as the ones discipling you. And if you what's almost gotten the modern generation of Christians in trouble and where they are now is everyone calls the people that follow Jesus his disciples. But a lifestyle of discipleship has gone away from the church. There are generations that are unwilling to submit to authority figures because of a pride issue or because, well, I shouldn't have to. They're just judging me. No one's judging you. People love you. People care about you. People see you the way. That's the thing. Look, if it goes back to the whole dating thing that I said earlier, if you believe God has called you to this church or whatever church you're in, that means that you believe God has placed you under that leadership to be led, to be discipled, to be mentored, to be formed and molded like clay. But so many people have an issue with that and think like, oh, I shouldn't have to submit to them. It's an authority issue. If you can't submit to people you can see, how can you submit to a God you can't see with your physical eye? And for us, I mean, Pastor Ryan and I were talking to someone yesterday. We are not controlling people. Pastor Larry's the same. The leadership of this church are not controlling people. It goes back to, if you feel called here, then you, out of your own accord, should want to be discipled by the leadership here. And there are many people here that are. I mean, Pastor Larry just commented. There are many people that come to us that are constantly texting us, calling us, going to coffee with us, that are doing little things like this. So I'm not trying to paint this picture that no one's doing this. There is a great number in this church that are doing it and doing it right and doing it properly. This is, I mean, even Pastor Ryan and I sit and talk pretty much every day, ironing, sharpening each other. I talk to Pastor Larry. I ask him questions. What would you do in this? What do you think about this? That's what I told him the other day. I love just having him around. Same with evangelist Larry Harvey. I love having these men around because they sharpen you. I love having friends like I have from New York and Tennessee that I can call and we sharpen each other. Doesn't matter where you get, whether you're a minister, whether you're a lay person, it doesn't matter. You need people that are going to sharpen you. If you don't stay sharp, you are not effective. I mean, what did they say? The knives that cause the dirtiest or the nastiest wounds are those that aren't sharpened. And it's just like, have you ever tried to cut a vegetable with a dull knife? What happens? It slips off and ends up cutting you, right? But a sharp knife goes straight through and is effective. If you are not surrounding yourself with the right people, if you're not being discipled by the right people, let's go back to our very first scripture of the day, and we'll close with that. Proverbs 13, verse 20. Proverbs 13, verse 20. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you going to war with? Who are you doing life with? Who are you getting advice from? If you answer those questions, you'll see not just where you are currently in life, but you'll see where your life is headed if you don't make changes. For some of you, that'll be a very positive place and a place you want to go. Others of you will, if you ask yourself those questions and you're honest, will realize I have to make some changes. If I am surrounded by stagnant people that are not moving forward, I don't want to be held back in life anymore. I want to do exactly what God has called me to do. I want to walk and fulfill the promises He has for my life. I've got to cut some people off. It goes back to John 15. We didn't read this today, but it fits right in. I am the true grapevine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit. If there are people in your life that their relationship with you is not producing fruit, or you're not producing fruit in their life, cut it off immediately. Cut it off. And He prunes the branches that do bear fruit, so that they will produce even more. You have already been pruned and purified by the message I have given you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. My friend, Pastor Tim, was talking about this the other day on one of his broadcasts. Psalms chapter 1. Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked or stand around with sinners. This is exactly what we're talking about. Whose advice are you following? Who are you standing around with? But they delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. They are like trees planted along the riverbank, bearing fruit each season. Each season. Each season. That is so important. I want to see what the Amplified says. Verse 3 in the Amplified. And he shall be like a tree firmly planted, firmly rooted, grounded, not moving. You have to be rooted and grounded and not move away from the word, no matter, just like Joshua and Caleb. It didn't matter what the other people said. It didn't matter if the whole community wanted to stone the two of them. They were firmly grounded and rooted on what the Lord had told them. The Lord is with us. We can take the giants. We can take the land. We can take the wall. It didn't matter what stood in front of them. The Lord was with them, and they stood firm on their faith. Listen to this. Firmly planted and tended by the streams of water. You got to stay plugged into the river of God to feed you, to cause your roots to grow. By the streams of water, ready to bring forth its fruit in its season. Its leaf also shall not fade or wither, and everything he does shall prosper and come to maturity. It doesn't matter what season you're in life that you're in. If you're surrounding yourself with the right people, if you're being obedient to the Word of God and standing firm on your faith, you should be producing fruit in every season of life. Your leaf will not wither. You won't have dead seasons. You won't have dry seasons. You will produce fruit in every season. But if you're surrounding yourself with stagnant people, that means the river won't flow, which means your roots aren't getting fed. So ask yourself today, am I fully surrounded by on-fire people that are helping me grow, that are sharpening me? Or do I have any stagnant people in my life that are actually slowing me down and causing me to go backwards? If you can answer that second question, yes, then you need to do some pruning, cutting. You may need to go to Ace Hardware or Home Depot and buy some pruning shears. But go do it. Go do it today. That's what I have for you today. We'll wrap it up there. Prayer in about, right at an hour now. 6 a.m. prayer in the morning. Don't forget D groups. Other than that, love you guys. We will see you this weekend.